Now we will have the singing of the national anthem by Megan and Paxton Hartman.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Great job, great job. I think that might have been done without any practice too, so that was very, very, very good. Now we will have the flag ceremony and the unveiling of the Doughboy. Participants will be the Boy Scout Troop 16.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Now we will have the 21 gun salute by members of the Rabiega Gorgel VFW Post 3451.
Detail. Hit. Cut. Forward. On. Right. Wing. Ready. Aim. Fire. Aim. Fire. Aim. Fire. Play. Reset. On. Order! On! Hurry! Red!
I would like to thank Aggie Kostiak for that beautiful rendition of Taps. Once again, I'd like to welcome everyone here. If you don't know me, my name is Joe Wexler. I've been involved in this project since the very beginning when really there was not a lot of interest in saving the Doughboy statue. But through the efforts of our community, through the people that were involved in the construction of the bridge, it moved up to a high priority, and it became such an important issue for veterans and actually for the people who live in South Scranton is why we're standing here today. Since 1940, Duffy Park and the Colonel Frank J. Duffy statue have served to remind Scrantonians of the heroism and sacrifice of those who served during World War I. Since the founding of our country, men and women have served in the military. Others have joined, not as replacements, but comrades sharing the same dedication to this great country. Both statues will now share the duties of being a memorial to the spirit of the American Doughboy. The original statue will continue its mission at a new post. The fighting colonel, as he was known, will be transferred to the Steamtown Historical Site, where Colonel Duffy distinguished himself as a leading expert in the electrical industry. I would like to congratulate and thank the members of Rabiega Gorgel VFW Post 3451 for their nearly 80-year commitment to Duffy Park. Many of us as South Scranton youths referred to Colonel Duffy as our grandpa. He affectionately earned the name Iron Mike. He was the target of vandalism during the Vietnam War, and it was a sad day when he was crated up in 2014 and his future was in doubt. I would like to thank all who were involved in securing a permanent home for the original Duffy, and those who worked to bring his clone, as we're going to call him, to the new park. It was 100 years ago today that World War I came to an end. Let us not forget those who served, those that died, and remain in France. Those who came home and built this city. Colonel Frank Duffy's statue is part of our past and now part of our future. Thank you. Whoop. Good thing I was done with that. That was... I would now like to invite the Honorable William J. Cartwright, Mayor of Scranton, to offer his remarks.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you. Before I say anything, I just want to congratulate and thank Joe Wexler. Joe was our council president when this thing started and put his heart and soul into it. Without Joe, I don't think this thing would have got accomplished, so thank you, Joe. On behalf of the city of Scranton, I'm honored to be part of this rededication of the Colonel Francis J. Duffy Memorial. Colonel Duffy proudly defended his country and gave his life during World War I. He represents the values and courage and honor that have long been a trademark of Scrantonians. His memory and record of service has been maintained by the members of Rabiega Gorgel VFW Post 3451. For many years, these South Scranton veterans maintained the statue and conducted memorial ceremonies here at the park. Through the combined efforts of the state, the city, and VFW, and other civic organizations, the new park and the Duffy statue will serve as a tribute to the service given to this country by Scranton heroes who fought in World War I. May this memorial be a place of reflection, gratitude, and patriotism for all who visit here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Now I would like the Honorable Patrick J. O'Malley, Lackawanna County Commissioner, to offer his remarks.
Ladies and gentlemen, first and foremost, I'd like to thank all of our veterans. It's Veterans Day. Thank you. Thank you for your sacrifice. Thank you very much. And to all those that are at our cemeteries and on the monuments, if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be here to dedicate this today. That sacrifice goes all the way back to the beginning of our country. You know what I mean? That's where it started. And I'd like to thank all of them, the ones that are above and everyone. But to Joe Wexler, thank you, Joe. Fabulous job. And to our good friends over at Rabia Gorgel VFW for never forgetting that our Colonel Duffy meant the world to all of us in our community and our country. Thank you to all of you here today. Thank you. It really, really matters. Your VFW made sure that park was kept up and made sure that they cloned our Doughboy, and the real authentic one is in the vicinity where he worked, down at Steamtown. What a fabulous place for him to be. I just want to take everybody back real quick. Okay, let's drop the cell phones, forget social media, knock off 90% of the cars on the street, no phones in the houses, just a radio. Now we're in Colonel Duffy's day. He's going off to war, right? He goes off to war. Think of the mode of transportation back then. Bus, train, boat. That was it. That was the modes of transportation. How did you stay in touch with your relatives? A letter. Well, that letter might take months to get back. There was times where someone got killed, and their family would get a letter that the loved one was dead, and the letters would still keep coming after the fact. That was the type of time it was. In all his faith, in all his heart, he left his community, and he fought on behalf of us, and he died. And I would like to thank Colonel Duffy, personally, on behalf of our 214,000 citizens of Lackawanna County, for his sacrifice. Thank you, Colonel Duffy. Thank you very much. And at this time, I'd like to yield my time to my good friend and just received another term in Congress, our Congressman, Matthew Cartwright. Matt Cartwright.
Thank you. Great job, Joe. And thank you all for being out here today. You'd think I'd had enough of speechifying for a little while.
There's a time limit today, Congressman.
There's a time limit. What an important day this is, 100 years of the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. 100 years. We had this earlier this year. Occasionally it's my privilege and my honor on behalf of the President of the United States to present service decorations and sometimes posthumous service decorations. This year, on the 100th anniversary of his wounding at the Second Battle of the Marne, when Kaiser Wilhelm's troops used mustard gas on our troops, I was able to present to the entire extended family, children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, in Duryea of David Boone, an American doughboy over there who was wounded but not killed 100 years ago this summer. And so I wanted to be here and join you on this incredibly momentous occasion. And I'm going to do something that I like to do on Veterans Day, and that is read part of Shakespeare, one of the great benefactors of the English language and who honored veterans in an amazing way in Henry V. And it was right before the Battle of Agincourt, when the English troops were vastly outnumbered by the French at Agincourt, and this is Henry V's speech, and this is what he said to rouse his men. He said, "This day," and it was on St. Crispin's Day, this day called the Feast of Crispin, "he that outlives this day and comes safe home will stand a tiptoe when this day is named, and rouse him at the name of Crispin. He that shall live this day and see old age will yearly on the vigil feast his neighbors and say, tomorrow is St. Crispin. Then will he strip his sleeve and show his scars, and say, these wounds I had on St. Crispin's Day. Old men forget, yet all shall be forgot, but he'll remember with advantages what feats he did that day. Then shall our names, familiar in his mouth as household words, Harry the King, Bedford and Exeter, Warwick and Talbot, Salisbury and Gloucester, be in their flowing cups freshly remembered. This story shall the good man teach his son, and St. Crispin's Day shall never go by from this day to the ending of the world, but we in it shall be remembered. We few, we happy few, we band of brothers. For he today that sheds his blood with me shall be my brother, be he never so vile. This day shall gentle his condition, and gentlemen in England, now abed, shall think themselves accursed that they were not here, and hold their manhoods cheap, whiles any speaks that fought with us upon St. Crispin's Day. That's one of my favorite passages honoring veterans, and I like to inflict it on every Veterans Day crowd I can do. Thank you for having me here today. Congratulations.
I would now like to ask our state senator, the Honorable John Blake, to offer his remarks.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted to be with you on Veterans Day 2018. It's very special for me, actually, to be here with the Doughboy, as my grandfather, Vincent Blake, was in the American Expeditionary Force that left Scranton by train, went to Hoboken, got on the Leviathan, went across the sea with the perils that presented, and landed in Brest, France. And there's a mention earlier of a letter that came home. Actually, my grandfather wrote a letter in March of 1919, months after this day in 1918, and that letter basically outlined in about 6 typewritten pages on a manual typewriter his entire World War I experience. It's a family heirloom. He obviously came home from the war, and he served as the commander of the American Legion in Archibald in 1921, 22, and 23, and served on council. Maybe I get some of my politics from my grandfather. But I do want to really thank the veterans, the Foreign Wars 3451. I want to thank Joe Wexler. I want to thank this community for not letting go of this obligation to acknowledge Colonel Duffy and really all of our veterans. I would like to acknowledge as well that at the time that the Harrison Avenue Bridge was being considered for replacement, and it was we were kind of like forlorn about what that really meant for this community, as Joe mentioned earlier, the disruption of the park. But PennDOT really came through in the end. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, I think they deserve credit, and I want to say thanks to them. I would also like to acknowledge that in addition to the rededication of this park, which is so important, this bridge is now legislatively known in statute in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania as the Colonel Duffy Bridge, Frank Duffy Memorial Bridge. So we haven't forgotten our fighting colonel, Joe. I do want to just say this. Every day we have to acknowledge our veterans and say thanks with deep, deep pride and dedication. It's one of the most important and most solemn obligations we have as Americans to thank our veterans, current and past, for all of their sacrifice and that of their families to make possible the freedoms that we enjoy. So I am absolutely delighted to be here today to acknowledge the hard work of this community in making this possible. God bless you.
Oops. We're not of holders here. But now I'd like to ask Gerald O'Malley, who was the commander of Rabiel Gorga VFW Post 3451, to offer the keynote remarks.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. We appreciate it. We have a memorial, as they mentioned, every Memorial Day. We start at 12 o'clock, so if we had half as many people at our service then, we'd appreciate it. But I'd like to say something about Colonel Frank Duffy. He was born in Scranton, PA on August 27th, 1884. By the age 30, Duffy was professionally set. He had a job in the field developing leaps and bounds in electricity. He was considered one of the foremost authorities in his field. He belonged to both the American Institute of Electrical Engineers and the American Society of Mechanical Engineers. Not only was Duffy recognized nationally, but he was also president of the Scranton Engineers Club. The declaration of war in April against Germany in April of 17 brought a patriotic fever. On June 23rd, Duffy was appointed major and assigned to U.S. Army 109th Regiment. He was officially mustered into the service on July 23rd and sent to Camp Hancock outside of Augusta, Georgia, to be part of the 28th Division. Colonel Duffy was promoted to Lieutenant Colonel on April 3rd, 1918, given the command of 2nd Battalion, 103rd Engineers. Departing, he left for France from New York. He shipped out. He arrived in France by the end of May of that year, 1918. Lieutenant Colonel Duffy was as a combat engineer, utilized all the skills he had learned over the years. Engineers developed defensive positions, sustained supply routes, utilizing roadways, bridges, and maintained communications. This required constant reconnaissance, assessing needs, and coming up with workable solutions. On August 17, 1918, while on such a mission, Duffy and his motorcycle driver, PFC Frank Flory, also of Scranton, came under enemy motor fire. Both were killed near the small French city of Courville. The history of the 28th Division notes Lieutenant Colonel Duffy In his death, the Division Regiment lost a splendid soldier, an efficient officer, and a man whose leadership had been an inspiration to the command. He was buried in a French cemetery north of Chateau Thierry. Many Americans killed in the Great War were buried in the soil of the country, and they were sent to defend. The cemetery is currently managed by the American Battalion of Monument Commission. Even though Colonel Duffy did not return to Scranton, he was not forgotten. A small park, Colonel Duffy Memorial Park, was established in 1934 by our group, Rabiega Gorgel, Post 3451. We maintained it over those many years, as Joe said earlier. That's about it. I'd like to thank everybody for coming. We appreciate everybody here, and I'd like to especially thank our group over there, Post 3451. Thank you, everybody.
As we near the end of our program, I would like to recognize some people who were not listed in the program. One of my good friends who did a lot of work in establishing some funds and working the community very, very hard for this statue, because it has an important part in his family, is my good friend Paul Kostiak. I'd also like to recognize Mayor Jim Connors. Jim, I'm gonna regret this, but do you have any words to say? No, come on. Come.
I thought you'd never ask. Thank you for coming out, everybody, on this chilly day. And what a great testament it is to all of the men and women who have defended our country from the beginning until this day. And a special shout out to my boss, Mayor David Winsel, who gave so much to our country, and to my brother-in-law, Jerry McNamara, who came back from Vietnam with some bullets in him. And anyway, I want to thank you, and I want to thank all of the veterans and all of the people who support the veterans. And thank you so much. They told me I could either make a speech or sing a song or tell a joke, so I figured I better make a speech. Thank you all. Thank you, Joe.
I'm not sure if you had an opportunity to read the paper this morning. There's a nice story in there about our Scranton Shade Commission, Tree Shade Commission. I'm going to let Mayor Wenzel go into that a little bit. But yesterday I attended the World War I memorial service at Naog Park. And one of the things that I learned there, first thing, I know where the monument is, but I'm sure there's a lot of people don't even know where the World War I monument is in Naog Park. It's up near the playground. But when that park was established, they planted oak trees around the statue. So all the oak trees that you see in that area around Naog Park were planted as a tribute to the World War I veterans, and they stand there till this day. So the trees that you'll see here, hopefully will do the same, Mayor, correct? That's right. So I'm going to let Mayor Dave Wenzel say a few words.
Thank you very much. When we talk about the trees, the city was celebrating the 150th anniversary starting 3 years ago, and we were looking for a project that we could do to would have a lasting effect upon something that we could see, throughout the years. And we thought, how about if we plant 150 trees over the course of our celebration? Well, we got to start going with it. And we were finding out that it was tough, finding, first of all, the funding for it, but then also where are we going to plant these trees all along? Well, then when we found out that we were going to be having the statue here, it was an easy one. You just go with the idea of the 11th day, of the 11th month, of the 18th, of the 11th hour, and we'd be able to place 11 trees around here to remember those 11s that we had, and we had great cooperation from everyone, from the city, from the state, and from the county, and everything worked out okay. And I'm glad everybody came here, and let's wrap this thing up, okay?
Hey, judges, would just like to recognize two other people that are here representing veterans. One is the County Director of Veterans Relations, Dave Eisel. And I would like to recognize Jim Kuchara, who is one of the leading veterans advocate in this area. Jim is from Post 25, which is celebrating what's its anniversary, Jim? Yes.
And Joe, and also, his post is the one that I erected the
Correct.
memorial for all of our World War I veterans.
Yeah, I believe in World War I there was Post 25 was the post, and that established actually established the NAOG World War I memorial. So thanks, Jim. I know you have another celebration going on in North Scranton, but I thank you for attending this today. I appreciate it. There is a long list of people. Please look in your program. So many people went and assisted us. So there goes my list. But I especially like to thank the city of Scranton. Brian Fallon, director of the parks, did a great job. And I would be remiss not to say that we worked very closely with PennDOT on this project. And I know he's hiding way in the back and he doesn't want any credit, but Pat McCabe was a great source in helping us with this project. And I would also like the staff, the ownership, and the people from Michelob Construction who constructed the bridge, worked very closely, took a severe and dedicated interest to this statue and its repair, because I know some of the foremen were veterans, and they took a huge interest in making sure that this came to be. So I need a program because mine blew away. Thank you. But once again, thank you so much for coming today. Please stop by the park. There's a parking space. You'll be able to visit the park. Please come to the Memorial Day service. It's a very moving experience. And once again, I'd like to thank everyone for coming, and enjoy your Veterans Day.